Hello, it's Rafael Gutierrez. Welcome to our channel again. Today, I am actually going to talk a little bit about financial literacy and what it really revolves around in karate. But before I do, I want to explain to you why I haven't been on for a couple weeks. Big thing is I had finals and midterms, and I got extremely busy. Wasn't able to actually have 2 minutes to sit down. I still actually am in the process of grading exams. But every time I get close to finals week, I start thinking of all the professors that did me a lot of good. For instance, there was a gentleman in San Diego State named Chris Lombatsky, Dr. Lombatsky, who he was a big influence on me in that when I was a freshman, 17-year-old kid, him and my late boss, Jan Kawakami, took me in, actually gave me a job working in their lab, and what I would do is I do protein chemistry with my boss Jan Monday through Thursday. Friday I'd help out at Glombatsky's lab washing dishes, something like that initially, but I ended up learning a lot of other techniques while I was there. And there are actually still some professors that I met as an undergraduate who are teaching, and I always respectful towards them because I do feel they gave me a lot. But one of the people who I really think of most when I'm during finals week is my late teacher, Taba Kensei. He was my sensei in karate, and he really was one of these people who made you feel like you were the most important person in the room to them. He would actually take you out and teach you everything that he could. He would spend days, weeks with you, making sure you understood, and he would always end stuff asking you if you had any questions. Taba Sensei, at one point, actually the last time I trained with him, I I was in Okinawa for 3 weeks, and for 1 week at least, I didn't see him. And I think the next 2 weeks he took me and was training every day uh, until I left. And he apologized because he had just gotten out of the hospital and uh, hadn't had time to train me before then. And I actually felt really bad because I had asked, "Oh, where is he?" No one had told me what had happened, but I at that moment realized that he had just gotten out of hospital. He trained with me. He trained me for 2 weeks, and I think it was 3 or 4 months later he passed away. Now, like I said, I didn't have as much time with him as the person who introduced me to him, who I always have a lot of respect and am always grateful to, which was Tony Partlow, who was Taba Sensei's representative to pretty much everywhere outside of Okinawa when he was alive. There was also Jerry Pilon, who, while I've had contact with him through emails and Facebook, I I know he was there before me and knew a lot more about Taba Sensei than I did. And there were a couple other people, but I really feel like I need to mention them because they were really the ones who kind of geared me towards him, either directly like Taba Partlow Sensei or indirectly like Pilon. I met a couple of his students along the way, and one of the things I sometimes wonder is if Taba Sensei knew that it was if he knew he wasn't going to be around too much longer because like I said, he spent a lot of time with me, teaching me as much as he could. When I was there, I actually helped him write some of the certificates in English. So if you have a certificate signed and stamped by Kensei Taba, chances are my writing's on it. So just kind of something funny to think about. But he sat me down and he told me about legacy. He said a lot of people don't think about what they're going to leave behind until it's too late. He mentioned that there was a couple people he knew who had pretty much driven a lot of people away from them due to arrogance, and later in life were trying to get students to come back to them, but it was too late. Everyone either had teachers already or uh, had had experience with these people, where nobody would come to them. And so it was. He said it was a really sad thing because you could see these people. It took them too long to understand that they weren't going to live forever. And like I said, I don't know if Taba Sensei realized that maybe that was going to be the last time I was going to see him. If I would have, I wish I could say what I would do different. But the truth is, with the way everything went, I really wouldn't change anything. I would have loved to have stayed there longer. I guess that would be the biggest thing. I would have probably tried to stay there longer so I could continue with them. But at the end, I guess that's the way it works. We don't really know when anyone's going. And like it's I'm getting off topic, so I'll go back to financial literacy. So in karate, one of the big things that ended up happening, and it's something that Taba Sensei also taught about, is the idea of iken hiatsu. You should be able to develop so much power that in one move you can end it. And financial literacy does have a little bit to do with iken hiatsu. Iken hiatsu is a concept of, if you think about it, of conservation. You want to do the least amount possible to be able to get out of the situation. Financial literacy, it does work with that. You actually want to save enough so you can get out of the situation you're in to get in a better one. There's a book I actually would mention, and I showed it last time. This is Tao Te Ching, which one of the verses in it talks about not trying to cause change, but be ready for the change when it happens. The idea everything's going to change. So, if things are going good, like the job market's going great right now, supposedly, it's a good time to start saving because every time things go up, eventually they're going to come down. So start preparing now for the downturn. I will actually tell you my story, and hopefully this is something you find interesting. When I graduated med school, and yes, I did go to med school, I started teaching, and I had enough money, I had enough work where I didn't have to worry. I mean, money was coming in, but I had one goal, and that goal is to buy a house. And so I saved as much money as I could while I was working. I mean, to the point where it's like I kept a roommate at all points of my life until I bought my condo. Now, what ended up happening is, as I'm saving up for my house, and I end up realizing that I haven't enough for the 20% that you need for a down payment to get the best deal, I find that there's the housing crisis, there's the Great Recession starts, and I'm stuck with less time working than I used to. So I actually ended up going into my reserves, my homeowner's reserve, to make it work. Now I also like traveling, and one of the things that happened was I used to work the entire summer. When I say the entire summer, I mean from when it started up until the day before the fall was going to start. And what ended up happening is they gave me half classes. So what I ended up doing is I ended up taking my half class, doing as much of it, doing it, and then jumping on a train, and I ended up going to actually around the U.S. I got to see most of it. I still have to see Alaska, but I plan to do that with my girlfriend. I think that'd be fun. I will do that soon, and then I'll have my 50 states, and I'll have to go to Puerto Rico next. But what ended up happening is I kept on seeing my savings slip little by little until finally everything improved, and I ended up working again the equivalent of full time, and I was okay. I was able to then buy the condo that I wanted, and while I wanted a house, the condo actually ended up becoming perfect because I like to travel, and a house, if you don't keep up the garden, things tend to go pretty much not so well. So, that's my story in financial literacy. It's about saving. It's about putting money in mutual funds because they make more money than savings accounts, and not spending. Again, it's a whole idea that we read about over and over. Prepare yourself as much as you can. In karate, like I said, for me, it gives me that what you do today, you will see the results later. If you think about it, nobody comes in and it's like in one day is able to do the moves perfect. It takes time, and those times take that time you need for your body to mature so you can get to where you want to be. And so that's one of the big things that is important is financial literacy. Now, I actually will conclude this with 3 other stories, which I thought were pretty interesting, because I keep on hearing that people cannot make it in the U.S. Now, in Off the Rails, I actually did tell the story of my father in part, which he came to the U.S. He worked pretty much 14 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and then Saturday he took it easy, only worked 6 hours. Uh, and my mom also helped. They set up their office, and at the end they sent us to school. And they achieved the American dream in '79. Where if you read history, you know that in '79 there was an oil embargo. So go figure, an immigrant in the U.S. was able to achieve the American dream in probably the worst time to try to achieve. Well, maybe not the worst, but one of the worst times to try to achieve it. Nowadays, I actually do know a lot of people who have achieved the American dream. And I'm not going to mention the names, but I will mention how one of them started. Some of them started. One of them actually started as a dishwasher in a restaurant, and he pretty much was washing dishes, ended up moving to waiting table, and ended up talking to someone who owned a coffee cart. And in their coffee cart, they wanted to sell their coffee cart because they had a restaurant, and they had 3 kids, and they were a couple, and they had 3 kids, and they wanted to close their restaurant. I'm sorry, they wanted to keep their restaurant and get rid of the coffee cart, but they knew how much money it brought in. So he ended up talking to them. They financed him. So he ended up paying him a certain amount of revenues until the coffee cart ended up being his. Now he has his own business. What's interesting is he was an immigrant to the U.S. Another person I met, he did construction, and he ended up working his way up. He ended up getting a couple licenses, and now he owns a construction business. He's building houses, doing well, and he's looking at how he's going to leave things to his kids. Again, he's another immigrant who came in and managed to do this in the last maybe 20 years. And there's actually stories like this over and over again, which I actually know these people firsthand. I won't mention who they are. I think this is the stories that they should tell themselves. But they actually, without realizing it, understood the basis of financial literacy, where you save. You try to find out how to get ahead. And beyond just working 9 to 5, I mean, all these people are working. Actually, even today, they're working multiple jobs, multiple places, and eventually they're going to be able to step back and be the business owner who works 9 to 5 and has his workers that do what they need to. Now, like I said, financial literacy pretty much is about how savings works, how a dollar today is not going to be the same as a dollar in 10 years, but because of inflation, and that's actually what I see. Actually, I'll tell you with my condo. I bought the condo. I won't say too much, but my mortgage comes out to less than half of what most people are paying for rent for the same unit. Now they have their reasons for not doing it. I have my reasons for doing it, and I'm not going to say one's right, one's wrong, but the idea that if you save, you understand how to invest. You understand that you understand compound interest, and you understand where you really want to get to. Working all these things together, you can get to something else. And these are all concepts that we actually do talk about in karate. I hope you enjoy this, and let me know what you think. And have a good week. Hopefully I'll see you soon. Goodbye.